here. Glad to see everybody out on this cold evening. It's truly wonderful to have a full house tonight. Before we begin, a few quick reminders that this room is equipped with a T-coil-enabled hearing loop for those that use T-coil devices. We also have headsets available at the back if you would like to use them. If you haven't already, please take a moment to silence your electronic devices. So, tonight we are absolutely delighted to welcome Jean Hanff-Korelitz back to Princeton for a conversation about her newest novel, The Sequel, which was the highly anticipated continuation of the story that began in her best-selling 2021 novel, The Plot. It is a clever, richly layered, and wonderfully twisty continuation that engages readers from the very first page, and it also highlights her extraordinary ability to blend psychological acuity with irresistible narrative momentum. It also has literary playfulness, and readers once again find themselves in the hands of a writer who knows exactly how to surprise and captivate. Jean is the author of many acclaimed works, including You Should Have Known, which was the basis for the HBO series The Undoing, as well as other books such as Admission, The Devil and Webster, The White Rose, Interference, and others. It is especially meaningful to welcome her back to Princeton, a place she called home for many years before relocating to New York. Many of you know her not only through her books, but also as a member of this community, and we are thrilled to have her here. We're also thrilled to welcome Amy Jo Burns, who will be moderating tonight's conversation. Amy Jo has joined us at the library several times over the years, and we're always grateful to have her here. She is the author of the novels Shiner and Mercury, as well as the memoir Cinderland. She will be returning to the library in March for the launch of her forthcoming novel, Wait for Me. Our format for tonight is simple: a conversation between Jean and Amy Jo, followed by audience Q&A, and then a book signing. Our longtime friends and partners at Labyrinth Books are here tonight, and Jean will be signing copies right after the Q&A. So thank you once again for spending your evening here at the library with us. Please join me in welcoming Jean Hanff-Korelitz and Amy Jo Burns.
Thanks for coming out, everyone. It's so nice to see you. And it's wonderful to meet Jean because actually I've never met her before tonight, but we share an editor and a publisher, so that's really special and exciting. And Janie had mentioned you have a bit of a history with Princeton. Would you, for those of us who don't know, could you tell us a little bit about, your connections to Princeton?
Well, I was rejected from university when I applied in 1979. So we have to go fast forward another couple decades, but moved here in around 1990 with my husband, Paul Muldoon, who was already teaching here, had been teaching here kind of as an adjunct, but from that time was on a more permanent basis. And I was here from 1990 until 2013.
Oh,
so raised my kids here and a lot of friends here, some of whom are in the room, indulged my passion for very old houses here. I had a friend the other night who told me, every time I'm in a house of yours, I think they can never leave this house, and then you leave it and you go somewhere else. But we had especially nostalgic about our house on Canal Road in Griggstown, which was just a fantastic house, and I miss it a lot.
Well, we're so excited to welcome you back.
It's always really good to be here. The last time I came down was in June to help my husband go through the thousands and thousands of books in his office, prepare them for, being packed up and cleaned out. So it's bittersweet now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming back to join us. And also, as Janie said, we are here to celebrate the paperback of The Sequel, which is a sequel to The Plot. And we were talking before, we want to make sure we're very delicate about spoilers, because if you haven't read The Plot, the reveal in it is so satisfying, so we don't want to spoil that. But with that in mind, for anybody who's not familiar, you can kind of give us like a lay of the land of where The Plot leaves off and the sequel picks up?
Sure. Or we could just say, has anyone not read The Plot? You've not quite finished. What would you say, 10 pages, 20 pages to go? 30 pages to go. Okay. All right, the numbers are against you, I'm afraid. I think we're gonna go in for the. So the plot, as most of you know, as all of you know, is about I mean, I like to call him a failed writer, but then again, I think of him as an every writer, as an everyman writer, in that we are all this man. It doesn't matter where we are in our careers, we feel like a failure. You can probably attest to that.
Yes.
So you can be coming off the stage where you just collected your Nobel Prize and you feel. But Jake really is a failed writer. He had a moderate success with his first novel in that it was briefly noted in the New York Times, a little shard of praise that he clings to. But not that many people read his book. And the second book, he couldn't get a good publisher for, and eventually he published it with a publisher that he wasn't excited about. And then since then, he just has not been able to write anything. And he finds himself teaching in a kind of bottom of the barrel MFA program. We just, some of us just came from hearing Marilyn Robinson speaking over at McCosh, and she talked about her brilliant students over many, many years at the Iowa Writers Conference. This is not the Iowa Writers Conference. This is an MFA program where you write a check and you get an MFA. And he feels not good about it, and he doesn't like his students, and he feels that they reflect his own failure. And then into his class at this institution, which is called Ripley College, which is not a mistake or a coincidence, comes just the most arrogant student ever. He's, he basically reeks superiority and is obnoxious to everyone, especially to his teacher. And the root of his arrogance is that he is writing a book that cannot fail, which, believe it or not, is something we do hear. We do hear that, and it's never true. But in this case, when the teacher, our protagonist, hears the plot of this novel, he's forced to agree this book cannot fail. It is that good. The story is that good. A few years go by, Jake has sunk even lower, if that's possible, than he had been at the beginning. And through a series of coincidences, he discovers that his former student has died, and died without having written this brilliant plot. There's a brief struggle, not a very long and hard struggle, with questions of morality. About what to do with this information, but ultimately he decides to write his own book with this plot. There is no plagiarism involved. I think most writers would agree that what he does there's nothing wrong with what he does. I certainly agree, and becomes massively successful, but he cannot enjoy himself because he's too afraid that somebody will come out of the woodwork accusing him, and of course, that is what happens. So, we wanted to say where we left it. Where we left it was
His
we
wife.
know we know who's been accusing him now, and things.
Well,
just,
so the narrator sort of shifts. So it's no longer Jacob Finch Bonner. It's now his wife, Anna Williams Bonner. And she sort of is not a writer, but gets to step into the shoes of the protagonist.
what she said, yeah.
But I mean,
say that.
when I read the sequel, I thought she must have planned this from the beginning. When did you know you wanted to write a sequel?
Oh, she, meaning me.
You.
I did not, absolutely
Yes.
not. No, I had no idea. And I will say that if I had any idea, I would have dealt myself many more cards to play. I would have embedded many, many clues and strands to pick up in a theoretical sequel. I did not. I had very little, I thought, to work with, but I made use of everything that I had. There's a certain piece of furniture, for example, in the sequel that, I had to really use because it was one of the few physical objects that survives from the action of the first novel to the action of the second novel. But that's the classic necessity is the mother of invention kind of situation. But no, I did not know.
I love that because it's kind of like as a writer, you set yourself a challenge then to dig into your past
Kind
work
of,
and sort of see
you
what.
have to color within the lines that you
Yeah.
laid.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that helps you by, my husband's a poet, and he talks often about how writing in form can be freeing
Mm-hmm.
because it by creating these parameters, other things are freed up. And I suppose something similar was going on with me. You can't invent a new character. You can't bring somebody back from the dead. You can't contradict something you said before. You said it. You're stuck with it. And there was one rather complicated death scene that I had to completely rewrite in the sequel when I belatedly went back and checked what I'd said about it in the first book, and I had to throw it out because I had contradicted something that I had said earlier. Note to self, check first before you write the scene.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. It's, I thought for sure that you had it planned out because as I kept reading, I thought, oh, well, she added that and had that. And so, love it.
Nope.
Yeah. I want to talk about Anna for a minute. She is now, like I said, the sort of main character in the sequel. What is your favorite thing about her?
Oh, Anna is so refreshing to write because she, if you had her here and not me, and you said, Anna, what's your deal? What's your damage? Anna?
Yes.
Why do you behave this way?
Yeah.
She would say, I just want to be left alone. I mean, and who can not agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, don't we all just want to be left alone? Please cover your ears now. But, she's just a person who would feel that she has reacted to things that have been done, and that she is not a bad person. She doesn't go out to harm people.
Right.
She is reactive, and she has been the recipient of some pretty bad stuff. So do I like the way she behaves? No, I don't. But I like her feeling of, we go around once in life, and we need to take care of ourselves and do our work, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And if people would just leave one another alone to, in the vernacular of this novel, write their own stories, then we'd all be fine. It just doesn't work out that way. Yeah.
And I would love to hear about what it was like to create her as a character because, just seeing her unfold over the course of 2 books was one of my favorite aspects because she is a little bit diabolical. She's a precise planner, and she says one thing while she's thinking another. So you developed a really sophisticated psychology for her. And I'm wondering, did that feel immediate for you? Did you have to kind of unlock that over a series of pages? What was that like?
I think once I understood her, and I understood her pretty early, that was the bouquet that she came with. But in the acknowledgments of this book, I acknowledge somebody I've never met, and that is a writer named Thomas Perry, who sadly died a few months ago. But Thomas Perry wrote a series of novels about a woman, and I know we're all supposed to be, have very modern ideas about what people are allowed to write. I don't share those ideas. I think everybody should be allowed to write everything. But I'm very glad that Thomas Perry wrote these novels, which are about a Native American woman, before anybody told him he wasn't allowed to, because then we wouldn't have these novels, and they're so great. But his character is a woman named Jane Whitefield, and she is a person who helps people disappear. And there was something about the way she thinks that was very useful to me when I conceived this character of Anna. And I actually quote a sentence from one of these novels in the acknowledgments. And that was just a really great thing to be able to think about as I continually ask myself, what would Anna do here?
Yeah.
And what she would do is try to mislead everybody. And, self-preservation first.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things about Anna is that in the sequel, she sort of dips her toe into the literary world. And
How hard can it be, right?
yeah, that's my favorite line in the whole book. How hard if these guys can do it. So it's just, there's so much smoke and mirrors that she is just wiping clean.
Yeah.
And it felt very therapeutic for me to read it because it does satirize not only, the publishing industry, but also this machine that can be behind academic creative writing. Obviously, you're no stranger to these intellectual spaces that absolutely have their merit.
I was in one 2 hours ago trying to understand the Marilyn Robinson's lecture, most of which I didn't understand.
And I, thank you for normalizing that because I do feel like there is a very common chance for pretension to exist.
Yes.
And as somebody who has stepped into the world that Anna inhabits, how do you keep your head on straight?
Oh, my head is pretty straight because I'm always terrified about everything. So, I've been around a long time, as some of my oldest friends who are here tonight who knew me before I'd published anything, and I was writing and not publishing. So I've had a career that I wasn't smart enough to even want to even conceive of. All I could think of back in the 90s and the aughts was this novel, this novel has to be published, this novel has to become a bestseller, and it never happened. They got published, but they weren't widely read, and then suddenly at the age of 60, as Stevie Nicks would have not sung, I am an overnight success. And like I said, I've seen many literary careers, and I've envied many literary careers over these decades, and now I am incredibly grateful that I didn't have any of those literary careers. I like this crazy career that I'm having. Weirdly, when you stop hoping for it, that's when these great things happen, or at least they have in my case. And I'm just incredibly grateful about it. And if the next novel doesn't sell at all and nobody reads it again, that's normal too. So, yeah, I feel like I didn't answer your question.
No, you did. I think what's so encouraging is there's no one way to become a writer, and sometimes the academic machine can convince you it's got to be this way. You've got to get this blurb.
Sure.
You have to go to this MFA program and all these things. And it's very like insider, outsider. And that's what's so refreshing about Anna is she's like, this is a bunch of BS.
And it is a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
Because, my contemporaries were people like Bret Easton Ellis and Jay McInerney, people who I would have thought at that time were going to be invulnerable.
Right.
And that's not true either. So I don't know what it was about the plot that connected. I think it was very well published. There was a pandemic on. Maybe that was part of it. It had a lot of rage in it. It had a lot of humor in it. I really don't know. But it's funny to have people say to me, I read your first book, and now I'm going to read your second book. They're not talking about my first or my second, or my third, or my fourth, or my fifth, or my sixth, whatever. But those novels are still there. They haven't changed a word.
Yep.
I wrote them. They are available if anyone is interested, and if they're not interested, that's fine too. But my job was writing them, and all of the rest is noise.
Do you have a favorite out of the 9, right? 9 you've written? Can you tell us, or is it a secret?
It's so, you're not supposed to have favorite children, right? Yeah. There's a novel that I wrote after 9/11 called The White Rose, which also was not very well published and nobody read. But I'm not an autobiographical writer. I do not draw on my personal experiences at all. But that novel was very personal because I was here in Princeton, and at the time of 9/11, I felt such longing to be home, and also such longing for what had just happened to not have happened. So to set that novel in New York before 2001 was just a very powerful experience. And I don't know if you've ever had this, but I had this weird experience in that novel where I was writing a scene between two old friends who are having lunch together at PJ Clark's. And one of them is getting ready to move back to New York after decades away. And she says to her old friend, I realized that I wanted to be old where I'd been young. And I'm writing the sentence and I think, oh shit, that's what I want. And it was just one of those kind of deeply personal moments where, you know, your characters reach up out of the computer and like smack you, which I won't do because it'll hit the microphone. but you know, I read it on the page and I thought, I'm moving home. I mean, it took years, but that's where I'm going. So yeah, very personal novel.
Yeah.
I love them all, of course. But that's the special one.
And I was actually going to ask if you did draw from life experiences. And, you know, since you said that's not really your process, something I would love to know, since you have gone through this process so many times with different kinds of novels, how do you know when an idea you have is the right next book or even is a book?
If you're really lucky, you get the thing.
Yeah.
You ever get the thing? Yeah. Yeah, I was at a dinner party and somebody started telling me about something that had happened at Wesleyan in the 1990s. It'd been like a one-day story in the New York Times, but I had little kids then, so I didn't read it, and I didn't know about it. And he starts to tell me this story, and I just thought, stop talking, stop. I have everything, stop. And it became my novel, The Devil and Webster, another novel that nobody read, not to put too fine a point on it, but you don't need to know everything. You need to know one thing, and then it gets bombarded with the fictional gamma rays, and it grows legs, and it grows noses, and it grows hair, and and then it becomes your novel. But there's that moment where you just think, oh my God, just shut up, don't tell me anything else. You don't want the facts.
Yes.
You just want that kernel. So. And that's an instantaneous thing. And sometimes you have an idea and you have to wait a few decades for it to reach that same moment of urgency. That's what happened with The White Rose. Literally took 20 years.
So have you started projects and put them aside? Does that happen often?
Only once.
One time, okay.
It was the novel I was writing when 9/11 happened, and I didn't care. And I think that happened to a lot of writers. They just thought, I don't care.
What am I doing? Yeah.
Who cares? So yeah, that one I never went back to. It's a danger.
Yeah.
But it's an awful feeling to have to put aside a novel that you've started.
Yeah.
Awful, but it's pretty, universal.
And are you somebody who do you like to outline first? You sort of jump in with both feet?
Yeah, I don't like to outline. I don't want to know too much. There were a couple of novels that were based on other stories, which is something that I talk about in the plot, how nobody owns these stories because they've been floating around for as long as humans have been telling one another stories. And The White Rose actually was based on Der Rosenkavalier, which is a Strauss novel, Strauss opera, which was in turn based on a French novel of the 18th century, which may have been based on something else. Prove my point.
Yeah.
But that I knew where it was going because it had this template. And also my second novel, The Sabbath Day River, was loosely based on The Scarlet Letter. Although also on a weird Irish case involving 2 dead babies. Yeah. So The Scarlet Letter, 2 dead babies. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
And returning to the sequel for a minute, can you tell us a little bit about the chapter titles?
Oh, right. So I was on a plane, and I was thinking about a certain chapter in the sequel, which takes place in a cemetery. And it occurred to me that a great title for that chapter would be How to Save Your Own Life, which is the title of the sequel to Fear of Flying, Erica Jong's novel Fear of Flying. And then it occurred to me that every chapter title should be the title of a sequel. So I just started compiling the titles of sequels. We have provided all of this at the back of the book. You have all the chapter titles and the novels that they're the sequels to. So you have, It Starts With Us, It Ends With Us, Ready Player 2, More Tales of the City, The Promise, Dance for the Dead, From Time to Time. All of these are the titles of sequels. So some people figure that out along the way, and some people don't realize that until they get to the end of the book. But How to Save Your Own Life does indeed become the title of that chapter.
Yeah, I love it.
Very good title it is, too.
When I was reading, I sort of realized, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, but I was so trying to keep track of all the details in the plot, because I thought, okay, this one I'll figure this one out,
It's just a little extra bit of fun. It doesn't make or break the experience.
Right. It's a nice thing, because the book is a little meta, right? And
a little bit. It's so meta. It's so meta that sometimes when like newspapers print the cover, they cut this out. They don't realize this is the whole cover. Even the New York Times did that.
Oh, wow.
The paper of record did that.
Wow.
I thought it was one thing that my college alumni magazine did it. Okay, what do you expect? But the New York Times did it too.
Yeah, I feel like Anna Williams-Bonner would have gotten a kick out of that.
She absolutely would have. I mean, she has a front row seat to the pretensions of her husband's writer friends. So, her attitude is, if these idiots can do it, how hard can it be?
Yeah.
And she has to do it too.
And she does.
She does.
And she does. And, to your point, this book also sort of looks at the idealized vision of the literary couple.
Oh, right, of course.
And that's a whole thing in the literary world. And so you have mentioned you are one half of a literary couple. Yeah. I'm curious, what are the rest of us getting wrong about what it's like to be married to a writer?
It's so funny. I'm remembering that there's actually a conversation about that very thing in How to Save Your Own Life, Erica Jong's novel, which is maybe one of the funniest novels I've ever read. So read it for the humor and the sex, I guess, if you're into that. But, Paul and I were both poets when we met, but I stopped being a poet pretty soon after we got together. I did publish one book of poems, but it was so obvious to me that we were worlds apart in terms of what he was doing with poetry and what I was attempting to do. Besides, for me, the novel was always it. I mean, I desperately wanted to write a novel, but it was just so terrifying.
Yeah.
So terrifying. And it's still terrifying.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so I think our literary couplehood has been made much easier by the fact that we're not trying to do the same thing. So, I mean, I'll read his poems sometimes. Sometimes I understand them. Sometimes I don't. Paul usually averages one really good suggestion per novel. But I take it because I have to live with him.
So the two of you aren't, drinking vermouth by the fire, reading, aloud.
Trading pages. No, that's the dream and the kind of fantasy and the nightmare. And if there are other literary couples out there doing that, go with God.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think even Michael Chabon and Ayelet Waldman are doing that, but I'm sure some people are. But it's an internal, individual, cerebral, emotional thing, and you do it alone.
Agreed. And sometimes, if you talk about it too early, it sort of feels like it can spoil the magic that you've got going on.
Yeah. Is your spouse a writer too?
Oh my goodness, no. He actually He's had a copy of my book that's coming out in March
I know where
for
that's going.
months, and it's like he is working through it. He is. It's just, he's a reader, but he likes articles, nonfiction. He's a math person. He's a data analyst. And so he's very different from Anna, but alike in the sense that he gets such a kick out of like just the literary culture. He's like, you could, if it's about making money, he's like, there's a million other ways you can make
Oh, yeah.
a lot more money doing what you're doing. And that's very refreshing for me.
Yeah,
I
it must be.
do not think I could be married to myself. Not that all writers are, alike.
But having the difference in genre, I think, is a big
yes,
help to the marriage,
absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And I really love the ending of the sequel. There's something about it. I mean, so it is a page turner, and you're like, Anna's a really memorable character, and you're just sort of reading about what happens. But then the end, it just sort of opens up in this really moving way for me. I was going to read it, but I really want to be careful about spoilers. So I thought instead I would ask, what do you think makes a really good ending in a book?
I was just talking about this with my son this morning. He writes musicals, and he's having a little plot issue, which I broke it down for him this way. If you are reading a book in which you are being led to a certain conclusion, this is what's going to happen. This guy is a bad guy. He did terrible things. And you get to the end of the novel and you learn that this guy is a bad guy who did terrible things. So what?
Yes.
I mean, that's not where the surprise is. He may be a bad guy who did terrible things, but he didn't do the thing that you thought he did. He did something else. So there has to be some revelation for the reader that the reader didn't see coming, and it can be very, very difficult to pull off. The best way to find that thing is to find something that the writer didn't see coming.
Yes.
I'm in this situation right now where I'm trying to figure out the end to the novel that I'm writing, but I'm trying not to push myself. I'm trying to just kind of write towards it and hope like hell that it comes. But if there's an easy solution, if there's an obvious outcome, anywhere along the way, it immediately gets eliminated. So that is not going to happen now. What is going to happen? I don't know, and that's the point.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as the end of the sequel, I did not know until maybe 20 pages before
Really?
where we were going to end up. Yeah.
Love it.
So
Did
I
you-
was surprised too.
Yeah. See, and that's, I feel like if it's genuine for the writer, then you feel it as the reader too.
That's why I'm not an outliner.
I'm not either. I do wish I could be though sometimes.
Yeah, it seems like a lot easier
It
if
does.
you could do it.
It
but-
seems like it's just a straight path instead of this,
And don't you think that will be reflected in the reading experience?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
We're going to connect the dots. We're going to go from A to Z.
Yeah.
And then we'll all be at Z, and it'll be the end of the alphabet, and the book will be over. And how exciting was that?
And so you've published 9 novels. You've had, a bestseller. You've written a sequel. You've had your work adapted for screen. If you had to give some advice to somebody who is just starting out, whether it's with their first book or they're interested in getting into this, I mean, life really, what advice would you give?
Well, if it were a person at the very beginning, like a young person, the kind of young person that I was, who wanted to write,
Yeah.
the advice would be to read. I mean, just not worry so much about the writing. If only we could be sure that every young person who wanted to write were already a passionate reader, but we cannot be sure of that. There are many, many young people who want to write, but they're not readers. And you can't be a writer if you're not a reader. You just can't be. Because you have to fall in love with language, and the only way you can get the language is by reading other people's books.
Right.
If it were an older person who wanted to write and struggling with a first novel or a second novel or a third novel, I think my advice, and I know I said already that I'm a fearful person.
Yeah.
I think there's so much emphasis placed on overcoming fear and, you know, readying yourself to write by somehow besting the fear. And I think that's wrong. I think that's totally wrong. You will never get rid of the fear. The fear is never going anywhere. All you can do is learn to negotiate with it better, to get a little time to do what you have to do. If you are waiting to not feel afraid, you will never write. And, you know, I'm afraid. I wouldn't ask Joyce, are you afraid after 60 novels? You're probably not. But, you know, you just have to learn how to tell the fear to shut the F up for a couple of hours so you can get some work done. Then it can come back and do whatever it wants for the rest of the day, just a couple of hours. And that's all you can use anyway.
That's right.
Most people can't go beyond a few hours. But, you know, this should be a non-issue, and yet I see how the writing industry functions, and one of the fictions of writing fiction is that you must overcome your fear in order to write, and it's not true.
I had a writing teacher say, you know, you might as well pull up a chair for your anxiety because it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
Make it nice and comfortable.
Just tell it to
Yep. That's it. It can come back.
Yeah. Well, it's coming back whether you say it can or not. So I don't know. So but beyond those two pieces of advice, I don't know much.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't go to an MFA program, and I always feel like there's stuff they taught there that I didn't learn.
There isn't.
There isn't.
No.
Did you go to one?
I did.
You did? What'd you learn?
I learned the kind of literary person I do not want to be. That's what I learned.
That's great. And what is that kind of person?
I just saw a lot of models of writers who had a lot of success that sort of cleared a path for people to try in a safe environment. And then I had examples of people who gave off that vibe that said, you will never be better than me.
Oh.
So don't even try. And it's this narrow thing. And when you are 24, 25, and you're looking at this person and you think, well, clearly they know better than I do. And they don't.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Yeah.
They have an opinion. They have something that's worked for them, absolutely. But I think that's the difference between saying you want a career as a writer and having a life. And I think part of having a life is sort of creating a space where other people can flourish. And so that is what I learned. I learned a lot of technical stuff, sure, but I feel like in terms of what I carry with me on the daily, that sort of is like a North Star.
Allows
that's
you
it.
to do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. So what's the best book you've read recently?
Oh my gosh.
Or a few? It's always hard to choose.
You know what? You caught me at the right day because I was just, I use Goodreads, I don't review, I just use it to remember what I've read. And I was just looking back at the last few months for some reason, and I remember a really good book called Murderland, which is a nonfiction book about a question that I had a lot in the 70s, which was, what the hell is going on in the Northwest?
Yeah.
Because there are all of these serial murderers up there. It's in the 70s, 80s, 90s. What the heck is going on up there? That it is suddenly they're producing all of these horrible men. And this writer, whose name I can't remember, basically is asking that question. And she does have a theory. It may not be correct, but it's a fascinating account of the culture and the landscape and some of the things that were happening then that she feels were interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I've read a lot of books lately. I just read Joyce's new book. I interviewed her last week. Nathan Hill's novel Wellness, which we did in my Book the Writer series in New York. I mean, it's been a very intense reading couple of weeks because I had a lot of events.
And so when you are not reading or writing, like what fills your cup? What's something you like to do?
What do I like to do? I mean, I love theater. I go to theater a lot. My sister and I produced an adaptation of James Joyce that my husband and I did. Sadly, we're not doing it this year, which is why my days are so empty, because it's a holiday show, and we should be in previews right now, but we're not. I love to go to theater. I love, I'm lucky enough that my kids like me, and they ask me to do stuff with them.
Yeah.
So that's nice. And a couple of nights ago, I was in my son's apartment listening to a read through and a sing through of a project that he's working on, and
That's
I love that he wants me to be there, and that he listens to me when I rip it apart a few days later, and so that makes me happy.
Love it. And you mentioned Book the Writer. Can you
Right.
tell us about that?
So Book the Writer is a series I run in New York, and it actually grew out of something I used to do here in Princeton. In fact, there are some people here who were in the group here. I used to run it as a fundraiser for a local charity, but when I moved back to New York, I decided to see if it could work as a business, and I also wanted to pay the authors, which was really important to me, which I hadn't done in the Princeton iteration. So it's called Book the Writer, and we have about 25, 30 events a year, and they are small gatherings with authors that take place mainly in private homes. And they're amazing private homes, because if you're going to seat 30 people, it's going to be a big living room. So our unofficial motto is "Come for the literature, stay for the real estate," because we all want to know like how people live. And you buy the book, you read the book, you buy a ticket. We tell you about a week before where to go. It's always in Manhattan. And you arrive, and there's Jennifer Egan, and you're talking about her new book. And we've had many, many great authors. And the nice thing about it is it's a different group each time, because it's not like a regular book group. It's whoever bought the tickets. We also added an online component during the pandemic. And so now we have people joining us by Zoom, and they also can ask questions of the author, and it's really fun. It's a lot of work for me, but it's really fun. And you mentioned blurbs before. It's also how I assuage my guilt over not doing blurbs. So I am not a blurber, but if somebody asks me to help with a wonderful new book, I'll say, well, I cannot give you a blurb, but I can do an event for you.
And if we want to know authors or events that you have coming, should we go to a website?
Yeah, the website is bookthewriter.com.
Okay.
And it's all one word. And all of the in-person tickets are sold out for the fall, except weirdly, I have a few spaces open for this Sunday afternoon with Victoria Riddell. Her new novel is called I Am Her. Is it I Am Her or I Am You? Anyway, this is like Sarah Jessica Parker's new book that she's published. So, Victoria launched her book on the Today Show and everything. That was exciting. That doesn't happen a lot.
Exciting, yeah.
So a few people have gone to the Zoom, so I actually have room for Victoria Riddell. But anybody can join by Zoom.
Okay, great to know. And we are going to open it up to questions from the audience, because I'm sure a lot of you have things that you would like to hear from Jean. But so my last question before we do that is, what's next for you? I know you'd mentioned you're sort of
I'm
working
writing
on
a sequel to the sequel.
You are?
I am. Yeah.
When I finished it, I was like, oh my gosh, is she going to write a third? What, do you have a title? Can you, or...
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Okay.
But let me put it this way. If you've read the sequel, you can probably figure out what the title of the next one is.
You have made my night. Because
Okay.
when I finished it, I thought, I don't
have to know
know.
what
Is she going
happens
to do
next.
it? So question though, did you know when you were writing this, you
time
wanted
I
to do?
knew, yeah.
Okay, there we
This
go.
time I
All right,
knew.
the
This
clues are
time I
in.
knew.
All right.
The clues are in, but I will tell you one little thing that I realized. Remember I said I didn't have much to work with in the plot?
Yes.
There is a single line in the plot that I remember writing and thinking, I'm going to end up cutting this line. And maybe I forgot or something. but it is going to explode in the third one.
I can't
Yeah. And I don't know what, I don't believe in anything, but something was telling me, put that little
put that in.
unsupported fact in there.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I know we'll wait.
Well,
And
I know
it'll
you
be
know
worth
the
the wait.
editors,
Yeah,
so
I
you
do.
can probably get
I put a good word.
All right.
So Jean, has there been interest in making the plot and the sequel into a movie, made-for-movie
Yeah,
series, maybe TV series?
Well, it's changed a lot. It used to be like Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick.
Yes.
It used to be Mahershala Ali TV show with Hulu, and now it's not Mahershala Ali. It's a film, not a TV show. I can't say who's making it, but I mean, if in fact it goes forward. But it looks like it's going to be a film. It's got a great script. It's got a great director. And right now they're frantically cutting the budget to make it viable.
Okay.
Exciting.
So, questions from the audience. I'll bring you a microphone. If you have a question, just put your hand up. Did we answer all the questions? This is unusual for a Princeton audience. Come on. Okay, there we go. Let's get the ball rolling.
All right. Hello. So I had a question because I read both of these novels, and then I read The Latecomer, and I'm just wondering how they're so different. What was the timing like? Were you working on one when you were also writing some of the
It
the
was
plot in
a
the
very
sequel?
convoluted situation because I was writing The Latecomer, which is a very different novel about a family in New York, and I was having a lot of trouble. I mean, we talked before about the exquisite pain of having to abandon a book. There's another exquisite pain, which is not abandoning a book, which you feel like you should be abandoning. I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. It was rejected by our editor's former publisher, which had a contract for a first refusal. They rejected it, and the message that came back to me via my agent was not even close, not even close. So that was bad. And then we submitted it to our editor at her new imprint, and she also rejected it. She said, it's just, you have to write it again. I'm not giving you a contract. And I spent the fall of 2019 rewriting this novel, The Latecomer, and getting more and more frantic because I had this crazy idea that we were about to have a global pandemic, and nobody believed me. And it was so bad that when she rejected it again, that following January, we're up to January 2020 now. I said to my husband, I want you to come to the meeting with me. I was in such bad shape, 3 times rejected book, global pandemic that nobody believes is about to happen. And my husband, who is smarter than I am, said, I will come with you and I will stay at the Starbucks across the street. And you are going to go, you're going to be fine, you're going to go to this. So I go up to this meeting where I'm anticipating, I'm going to hear again why this novel isn't working. And I'm in this meeting with our editor, and I just kind of, I remember saying to her, I have this other idea. And I didn't have another idea. I was literally making it up on the spot. There's this failed writer. He's a teacher in an MFA program. He has this terrible student. The student has a brilliant idea. And she's going, And I'm like dragging out this story because I'm afraid that when I get to the part where I tell her what the plot is, which is the only other part of the story that I knew, she would say, oh, Joyce Carolitz did that. Because she's read everything. And I finally like ran out of runway, and I said, okay, and this is the plot, that is this contentious story. And her mouth just fell open, and it was very satisfying. And I went home thinking, okay, well, a window opens. Maybe I'm not going to be able to write this novel, but I have another idea that she likes. And then the next day, my agent called and said, what happened in that meeting? And I said, oh, we talked about the latecomer and the things I might consider changing. And she said, no, I want to hear about the other novel. And I said, what other novel? And she said, well, apparently you have a whole other novel. And I said, oh, no, that was just a story that I made up. And she said, well, you're getting a 2-book contract. So remember, this is a 2-book contract. One of those books was the book she'd rejected the day before. And the other book was a book that didn't exist. So, I mean, it was a transformative day. It was an incredible vote of confidence. But we were still about to have a global pandemic, which we did. Spoiler. And it was Deb, our editor, who said to me, you should put aside the latecomer. It is, it's killing you. You're like banging your head against the wall. And why don't you write that other story you told me in the office? And that's what I did. And I wrote it in 4 months, which was absurd. But remember what those 4 months were like. And I was so enraged. I was so scared and so enraged. And I was like literally not leaving my bed. And I didn't have kids at home. I had nothing to do but write that book. And I think that's where all the rage comes from. And then after I finished the book and she accepted it, I kind of took a deep breath and I went back to the latecomer and I saw immediately what the problem was. Immediately, which was almost an otherworldly experience. And I fixed it. It wasn't a small problem, but it was fixable. And that is why the plot came out. Then a year later, The Latecomer. And if you really thought the plot was my first novel, because you hadn't read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, 7, you could be forgiven for thinking, what the hell is this big, enormous baby, 450-page baby that just kind of came rushing into existence afterwards. So that's not how it happened. But, again, it's part of my weird career.
That's so encouraging, isn't it? I mean, it just,
I have a weird career.
I'm so glad that The Latecomer made it into the world, because actually I probably like that one the best out of all your novels. So
What I
anyhow.
was expecting was, where's the body? Where's the crime? No bodies, no crime, just a really messed up family. But I think I was thrilled that people gave it a chance and liked it.
Any other questions? Oh, wait over here. Hang on a sec.
So what was the problem with the latecomer that you needed to fix?
The Latecomer is about this big, unwieldy family with triplets and a much later child, a latecomer. And I had been so consumed with trying to figure out how not to make this child more interesting than that child. I'd been like loading them up with stuff and kind of moving pieces around. And it was all, no improvement or no kind of iteration was any better than what had come before. And I realized when I picked up that novel that I had not at any point asked myself whose story I was telling. Never. 101, right? Maybe they teach that in the MFA program. Maybe I missed that. But, and I just thought, it was so obvious that the narrative choices I had made were muddying the water. And there was a very clear answer to that I had just blithely ignored. So I had to fix it. And once I did, that clarity, just brought everything together.
Okay, other questions? Do you have other questions, Amy Jo?
I'm sure I do. Do you have, I would love to know, what's like your favorite part of the writing process and what's the part that you hate?
I hate starting. Starting is the worst. I love being copy edited. You feel so clean.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh, somebody's looked up what time sunrise was on October 9th, 1999, and that's not what you wrote. And
Yeah.
now you got to fix it. And I love, just saving me from these dumb mistakes.
Yes.
Just somebody saying, this is not clear, or I think I know what you're trying to do here, but it's not working. That's the best.
And how do copy editors, I mean, are a really special breed of human, because how do they know? They have to know, or they have to be able to know what they don't know and they need to look up, because it's not just this, syntax is wrong or whatever. It's also what time was sunrise, and actually no, in 1979 there wasn't a Studebaker whatever, there was actually this kind of car, so which one did you mean? I mean, it's exhaustive. They
Yeah.
are so impressive.
It is a special kind of gift.
Yes.
I remember many years ago when I worked at Farrar, Straus and Giroux, there was this one room. They were all in this one room, and you'd go past and they'd all be at their desks, and they were brilliant.
And this is where my brain goes, is I'm sort of like, there must be some kind of apprenticeship, right? Where there's like the seasoned copy editor.
I think they
who
recognize one another's
Yes.
minds.
Yes.
But, like everything, it's probably on its way out, which is a great shame.
It is, and that's because I find it such a useful skill, because the worst thing when you're reading is to be pulled out of a story because you notice an anachronism, or it is even also, and maybe this is a bit more proofreading, but I've used the same word 3 times in the last 2 pages.
That's
All
a
that
big
sort of thing
thing.
pulls you out of the story, and to have somebody that just has this attention to detail, that feels
And
superhuman.
a really good reader can do that for you, too.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
doesn't necessarily have to be one of these magical humans who has this particular gift. But
Yeah.
you feel like, thank goodness I've been saved from
Yes.
writing that sentence. or
There's a
publishing
safety
that
net.
sentence. Yeah.
How many writers does a single editor have? Because you guys share an editor, right? So is there like a number, or does that depend on how?
Well, the imprint Celadon that we're both published by, we were just saying this before, the 2 women who started it back in 2019, I think, had been lifers in publishing. They'd been editors-in-chief, publishers, and everything below that. So by the time they had the opportunity to start their own imprint, they knew what good publishing looked like, and they wanted to have an imprint that embodied all of those values. And I think the most important decision they made was not to publish too many books. So really, every book gets a lot of attention.
And that's very rare, unfortunately.
Yeah.
One more question from the audience, and then I think we'll be wrapping up.
I wanted to ask about, since you've had several books that have been adapted, what that process is like for you. Have you had a voice or been able to share your vision, or do you just kind of see the finished
My vision
product,
is
and then
right
what does
there.
that feel like?
The first one that was adapted was Admission, which was filmed here in Princeton. And when I read the script of Admission, I had to take to my bed. It was so shocking and horrifying, and that was nothing compared to the changes that were made when You Should Have Known became The Undoing. That was like adaptation light compared to the HBO treatment. But the lesson is nobody's making you do it. So you cash the check, you sign the contract, and you acknowledge that there's a different, not even one skill set involved now. There are many skill sets, and they may not be your skill set. They're certainly not my skill set. I recently tried to write a television script, and believe me, it's a lot harder than it looks. There are people who are very, very good at it. And in the case of Admission, we're talking about somebody whose job is to sit and read all day. How do you make that something that you want to go to the movies and see? So they were very nice to me on Admission. They were very welcoming. I think there was a very pro-writer vibe on that set because many of the creative people on the set were also writers. They were actors and writers. They were directors and writers. Wasn't so much the case with the You Should Have Known, The Undoing. I had to kind of claw my way onto that set. And, you know, when I was introduced as the author of the novel, no lie, people would say, "Oh, there's a novel?" You know, they just, you are lower than the lowest of the low on the set of, you know, an adaptation of your work. And if you're not okay with that, stay home.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing all these insights into your books and the writing process, and Amy Jo for asking such great questions.
Great
It's been a
question,
great
thank you.
conversation. So we're going to go to the book signing portion now. So let's just give a round of applause here for our
Thank you.
guest tonight.
Thanks for coming. We can take this off.
And we will see you at the library for other author events in the future. Thank you.